how in the world did they cast us, the Democrats, as the elites, right? I mean, the people that fight for working class, right? We're not the ones that are just constantly doing tax cuts for rich people and trickle-down economics and trying to cut social services. How the hell are we the elites? Tell me. Good afternoon and welcome to yet another edition of the Left Shew Politics Podcast. This is episode number 26. I'm your host today, Michael Malloy.
And I'm Rick Shew.
I'm Jeremy Gruhlkey.
Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Can't wait to talk a little bit of politics with you about all the craziness that's going on over the past week. I guess that's the same theme every single week. But let's get right into it. I want to bring up a topic with you all, and let's get your idea and kind of get your feedback about your thoughts about what happened, especially this week. I guess number one, the House Judiciary Chairman, Jerry Nadler, made moves, and they voted and took it out of committee to basically hold William Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, in contempt and a subpoena to be able to release all details of the Mueller report. And now going to be voted on by the House. Probably by the time this is out, a vote will have already happened, and we'll know basically where they stand. Rick, what's your feedback about that? Is this a good move? Are we moving in the right direction?
Well, it's only the second time in history this has happened, right? Or, I mean, I know that Eric Holder was held in contempt for, I guess it was Fast and Furious. So This is not something that's very common, obviously, and so I don't take it lightly. I do like our institutions, and even though I do not like William Barr, and I do not like this administration, I want everything to be on the up and up in terms of even how we handle the opposing party. With all that said, yeah, I absolutely do. This guy's been nothing but a propagandist mouthpiece for this president, and it's pretty sickening, and he is withholding information that they have every right to, okay? And so he's playing games, and so they're going to call his bluff, and they're going to move forward with it. I'm 100% for it. I hope, as you said, by the time that everybody's listening to the show, that it is official. And I think that sends a very good message.
Jeremy, what do you think? Is this the right move? I mean, does it seem like the Democrats are playing this right?
To be honest with you, I have no idea. I go back and forth on, do we need to be protecting our institutions and the rule of law and upholding the Constitution, or are we making ourselves look worse and more petty by continuing down these roads? I mean, the more we talk about these things, the less we're talking about the actual policy issues and initiatives that we need to be talking about to promote the candidates that we have running for president next year. And I strongly believe that we need to get to the bottom of what's happening, but it's really hard to separate the necessary processes to uphold the rule of law and to defend the Constitution and our institutions from the natural horse and pony show of politics. And there's some of both involved in what both parties are doing. I mean, obviously more on one side than the other, but I think that it's undeniable that the way that Bill Barr is behaving should be unacceptable, but I don't know how we convince the bulk of the U.S. public that it's unacceptable, to make them understand, because you need a strong grounding in civics and the institutions and the processes and an awareness to be able to, translate forward what this action means as precedent, down the line, and how it actually impacts our institutions, for them to really get that. And people don't think in those ways. They think in terms of their daily lives and what seems to make sense. And unfortunately, the way our government runs doesn't really always make sense. So,
yeah, and I think he's got some good points there in terms of, or I think you have some good points there, I should say, in terms of we don't want to overplay our hand. There's a lot to be said for that, and I do want us to be focusing on policy. I know that's something that we plan on discussing specifically later in the show, but I'll just say that what I think I would like to see is I want Mueller to testify, and then based on that testimony, then I will know for sure where I stand in terms of what we should do proceeding or moving forward with, whether it's in trying to impeach Trump or what have you.
Well, yeah, because that's the question. I mean, that's basically what I think all this is leading into, right? I mean, that's the point, is like, we're trying to lay the groundwork. The Democrats are trying to lay the groundwork to, like, say, probably to move towards impeachment. However, there's...
When you say impeachment, you mean Trump, or are you talking about Barr?
Well, I mean, I think that Trump is the bigger target.
Trump is the bigger issue.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, but it's a symbolic gesture to hold him in contempt, and I support. Okay.
Absolutely fair enough. And maybe it would be like the same like if you did Trump, you would be also trying to impeach William Barr. But I definitely don't want the distraction. But okay, so here's what I see like is going on, at least like, I mean, the Democrats seem to be having that exact same debate, like what Jeremy was mentioning there. But Nancy Pelosi, I don't know exactly how she feels, like really feels. I mean, she seems like she's keeping it pretty close to her, but at least to her public comments, she seems to keep indicating towards like that she doesn't want to impeach. And like, I think that's a result of like, she's remembering the backlash that resulted, after the Republicans impeached Bill Clinton. And then I think that's a very legitimate consideration, but put in a lot of thought to it. See what y'all think of this, though. I think she's taking the wrong lessons from history about Bill Clinton. Like that entire impeachment process. Yes, there was like this huge like backlash about it, but at the end of the day, it was different. It was because the American public wasn't behind it. They impeached him. Now, it was a criminal offense. He did lie under oath, but it was about a blowjob, and that has never changed. And the American public found that to be a ridiculous reason, like to impeach him. Once the facts of this thing get out there, I think it completely changes. I think that there's going to be a different mindset, and not like just because every time that you try to impeach a president that now everything turns against you.
I
Go ahead.
I hear what you're saying. I disagree a little bit. I think that the people's opinion of Trump and his behavior is baked in. You could put Trump did this, Trump did that on the news 24/7 for the next 18 months, and it's not going to make one bit of difference on who votes for him and who doesn't.
Well, if that's the case, then we should just simply impeach if it's already baked in, because I think like I don't want to set the precedent.
Yeah,
you can't allow him to get away with this.
I totally understand that. I totally understand that thought process. I'm inclined to say it's the right thing to do, so it should be what we do. I'm also, part of Nancy Pelosi's job isn't just to lead and tell everybody else in the House what they're supposed to do. It's to provide cover. So, if Nancy comes out and I don't think she's necessarily vacillating. She's just sort of walking a tightrope along the line of maybe it's not the best time right now. And she can do that. It provides cover for other House members in more vulnerable districts to not have to be talking about impeachment all the time. And it still allows people like your Ilhan Omar's and your Eric Swalwell's and AOC's to be out there banging the drum of impeachment. I mean, in part, she's in a very difficult position, and I think she's trying to allow all members of the House to have it both ways and go out and do what they need to do in their districts and to sell their brand. So
right.
I'm inclined to follow her lead, to be honest with you. So
I think it's better because I think maybe the Republicans messed up back in the 90s by just the way that like the build up towards it. Once all the evidence is out there, I mean, don't get me wrong, like Trump and his cohorts have done a masterful job in confusing the public, where I think still the majority of people like don't think that he committed any sort of crimes. But once the evidence is out there for impeachment trial and the entire country's watching it, I think it will. I have to believe that it would change. My thought is just like you have to. I think everybody wants the Democrats, and rightfully so, like, move on, get into policy and do the things because that's what win you elections. But if you just start with a message like our hand is forced, and I honestly I believe that it is. It sucks, but we have absolutely no choice as this democracy. If you set the precedent that is okay to get away with, then we are screwed. That is a lesson in history that every single bad, desperate, and people way worse than Donald Trump will be able to get away with in the future.
I understand that, but I think at the end of the day, this still comes back to Mueller's testimony. If he reinforces what I think I'm reading in that report, because I've read a great deal of it, I haven't read all 400 pages, but I've read a lot of it, and I don't like what I'm reading. It's not flattering to this president whatsoever, and as an American, as a citizen, I'm pissed off reading this stuff. This guy's I don't want to use the word traitor in the literal sense, but he certainly does not put his country or our country's best interest first, not even close. It's him, it's all him. And it's awful. I think he's awful. But what's going to happen if we overplay this, it will empower him, and this could backfire. And at the end of the day, impeachment is a political process. Okay? I want to see us clobber this guy at the I almost said box office, at the ballot box. That's the way I want to see him leave. I don't want to make a martyr out of this guy. He's not going to get convicted in the Senate anyway.
Right.
With that said, Let's see what Mueller says. That will 100% confirm where I stand in terms of impeaching Trump.
And Mueller's a very serious person, right? I mean, I think like also getting him on the stand, they can attack him all as want. I think most of the country understands that that's bullshit. But the one thing that I think that like how we can misplay is that like, what was it? The Tennessee Congressman, what's his name? Steve Cohen, when he brings that bucket of chicken and sits it in the chair,
Jackass.
Like
Jackass.
Yeah, okay, it's a little silly, haha, but like this is not a game, okay? And we need to be the adults in the room, and we're definitely walking a very fine line to make sure that we're keeping the American public behind us. We cannot look like Republicans light. That was absolute bullshit.
Well, and quite frankly, it wasn't even funny. Like if you're going to go low, at least land it, make it funny. Exactly. It was ridiculous, and you know what? That's very like Trumpism kind of bullshit too. And I don't want to see Democrats doing that nonsense. I don't mind. We can have a little fun, and you can poke fun, and you can get dirty. And you've got to fight Trump. Okay, he's a scrapper. I mean, he's not an actual scrapper. That guy's never punched anybody or been punched in his life. I can guarantee you that. But he at least likes to pretend like he's won. And we're gonna have to. We certainly gonna have to take the fight to him. And when I see, for instance, people like Biden or Elizabeth Warren, so far those two are the ones that are taking it to him more aggressively than anybody.
Elizabeth Warren did it from the Senate floor. Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, Bernie Sanders is flat out called him a racist, so that's pretty powerful stuff too.
Well, Elizabeth Warren the other day called for like the first one in the Senate on the Senate floor, like to call for his impeachment hearings to start.
I know. I don't agree with that though.
I think I kind of like it. I think it's like that. Hey, let's quit beating around the bush here and let's go after it. But
I like her fervor. I like her strength. I don't want impeachment hearings right now. I want to hear what Bob Mueller has to say first.
Well, so impeachment hearings next Thursday.
What's that?
So next Thursday, you'll be fine with it.
Next Thursday, is he actually? Is it confirmed? Is he speaking
on the 15th?
But is that confirmed?
So. I don't know about confirmed. Nothing's confirmed in Washington until it happens. But
I saw newsflash. This will already be dated, but I saw newsflash that it was getting tossed back that basically Trump said it'll be Barr's decision, which and we're all going to pretend like that William Barr is like actually making that decision, and this isn't just something within the playbook of Trump. So something tells me he's going to try to stop it.
Well, first of all, that he did say that. Now he's already going on Twitter saying that Bob Mueller shouldn't testify. That the Democrats don't get a Jeremy. What was it? A do-over. That's what
I can't. I mean, like it is so manic. I can't even like keep up with it. But all right, but that's the impeachment talk. That's where we stand. I'm going to close just basically on this thought is that I think that it is true that he is definitely. I do not see like it's going to be a successful trial, right? In the Senate, I think that he will be acquitted because of the Republicans in charge. But if we approach it and we set the right expectation and just say, hey, this is what's going to happen, there, no matter what you see of the evidence, those Republicans will let him get away with it. And that way that the idea of that saying like have these big banner like not guilty, I don't think it's going to have the same impact like it did during the Clinton administration. But
okay. And Jeremy, you don't want to see it happen at all, right?
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that. I think that whatever happens, the Democrats are going to fuck it up, and we'll be second guessing it for the next 10 years. So I have no faith in the Democrats' ability to manipulate or execute process. I just don't.
I don't either. That's fair.
Okay. No idea what's going to happen. Let's move on. There is going to be an election coming up, and there's a 99% chance that's going to be Donald Trump, who the Democrats are running against. So we will just proceed forward as if that's the case, right? Jeremy, what's the message that you think the Democrats should bring in 2020? What's the thing, the main theme that we should be going after?
I don't know. I think it needs to be hardcore. I think it needs to be something along the lines of, be the reckoning. Go to the polls and be the reckoning. Donald Trump has said and done this, be the reckoning. The Republicans have allowed this, be the reckoning. The corporations are doing X, Y, and Z, be the reckoning. Like it needs to be the most inspirational message possible that drives not just passion, but some level of anger and the ability to affect change. I don't know that there's any one specific policy issue or position that we can really latch onto as a specific message, but I think as a message, we need to be telling people that you can't allow this to happen. And if you don't go to the polls and you don't vote and you don't get this man out of office and you don't let the Republicans know exactly what you think about the way that they've been manipulating our government, then things aren't going to change. So, be the reckoning, I think sounds great to me.
I know that like there's a political science that says something about like don't get like too deep into policy and like that we're all political junkies, so it's different for us because we're like policy wonks. But I do think we have to wrap ourselves like around a certain like policy or that certain thing. In at least in my mind, Rick, see what you think about this. I almost think, setting aside all the craziness, what I think like a lot of Democrats missed was like if you stop and only listen to the non-crazy shit, which was only about 10% of what Trump said during the last election cycle, he was he basically was talking about it like kind of the forgotten people, like middle America, middle income people, middle class. In fixing the problem with wages and all those things. And then if you only listen to that 10% of him, you'd be like, wow, that was actually really compelling. I think that is the Democrats' message, but I think that now we need to go into detail and then explain why, Trump obviously said this. I know you want to believe it, but here is what was actually wrong with everything that he did and go after him on his record. What do you think?
No, 100%. I think we're all on the same page on that. Actually go after Trump on his record, his rhetoric versus his actual record. Dissect it and do it in a smart way and do it in a way that the average person that, loses attention after 3 seconds can digest it. But there are certain policy things that are... Okay, let me just say this. Whoever the nominee is, I'm going to vote for them. I'm going to support them 100%. Removing this man is the single most important political thing in my 43 years on this planet, period. But with that said, as I'm trying to hone in on who I want to actually be the nominee, because right now I don't necessarily have a top person in mind, but I am very much looking for gun control. That's a very, very big deal for me, especially now we have a young teenager that's dead in Colorado 2 days ago that was killed in his classroom. It's unacceptable. And so, especially as a father that has 2 young kids in public schools, that is like my number one thing is gun reform. And I want people running on that. And yes, fucking politicize it. You're goddamn right we're going to politicize it. I will... has to be politicized because it's a political process to get something done. And
absolutely, I agree. Like this
100%.
Where Democrats are like afraid of it, like bullshit. Plus the NRA,
you're politicized. Yeah, fuck the NRA. Yeah, they are blowing up. But I'm trying not to get on a heated rant about gun control, the NRA, and I just want to say that's
later. I'm more just saying like, what are we focused? Like, what is the theme? What is that main thing that we're trying to go out there? What are we're trying to like generally communicate to
that we are the antithesis of Trump, that we are better than this, that we are better than him. And every time I see all the candidates do have that ability, and they are certainly very different from him. But there are others that I watch them. I'm like, gosh, could there be a bigger, more stark contrast between this specific individual and Donald Trump? And that's what we need.
I think we just make it about running against Trump and about Trump being Trump. We're going to lose.
No, I agree. No. That's not what I'm saying.
Being anti-Trump is not the answer.
I'm not saying go out and just talk about how much Trump sucks.
He'll suck all the oxygen out of the room, and then that'll be the only conversation. And like he'll at least fill that void of all these middle class white Americans who are really angry at the world.
Here's a good example. Okay, I will isolate one candidate, is Mayor Pete. When I watch him, I'm not saying he's my top choice. He's not right now, but I do like him. But he's a good example of this point I'm trying to make here. When I watch him on television, he does not just go after Trump. He's not just Trump sucks, Trump sucks, Trump sucks. He is just the exact opposite of him in his demeanor and his ability to speak and to make points and what he stands for. And I'm like, God, what a breath of fresh air. This is such a different person than this guy. And it's not about him going after Trump. It's just, he just is different. And that's what I mean. Because Jeremy, you're right. If we are just the anti-Trump party, then we're going to lose because we're not going to win that game. But we can be the anti-Trump party without being the anti-Trump party, and that's the candidate.
He has this certain message, and that honestly, it like hearing it because it's so refreshing. It just simply makes me angry at like all the rest of the Democrats. I'm like, this is exactly what we wanted you to be like talking about. Like this message is so simple for years, and we're like, how are you all missing this? You know, you're not speaking the correct language, and he just simply gets it.
He does it really well.
I hope at bare minimum that like the other candidates can learn a lesson from this.
Absolutely. If he's not the nominee, I'm just saying that you're exactly right, to learn a lesson. And to go back to Elizabeth Warren, who I do like, and you and I just recently met in Dallas, she's great. But when she's on the Senate floor talking about impeachment, I don't want that. Because Jeremy's right. We'll lose. That's not a winning message.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, at this point in history, like it's like somebody had to say it. I mean, again, this is not the fight that any of us would want. I would rather, yes, we win on policy because I think it'll be like the midterms and we will just steamroll them. It is something in there. It's an X factor that we can't perfectly predict, but we cannot. It's like our hand is forced. There is no option not to proceed down this path. And so, you know, let's talk about it now and let's get it done. Let's at least get this ball rolling as soon as possible so we can like start focusing on the other candidates when we get into 2020. So last thing on that, what do you think about the idea of the Democrats? If you're kind of like focusing on that idea, like the theme, like doing like a mea culpa, you know, that like kind of like not really a direct apology to Middle America, but somehow saying that like, you know what, you're right. We did miss a lot of things. Like we did focus too much, you know, a lot of economic activity on the coast, and just speak to their resentments and see if we can kind of like maybe reopen the door with some of those voters who were just like so detested with Democrats because Republicans sold all of us off as the elite. What do you think, Jeremy?
I don't know. I don't know about making some kind of a mea culpa. I definitely agree with the idea that we need to be communicating the message better to those people and talking about it in the frame of reference that they understand and that impacts their daily lives, because it does seem like, you know, Democratic policy or Democratic attention has been more focused on, you know, minority groups. And I don't know, the whole coastal elite thing, that's a nonsense narrative created by Republicans. But I think that what we've done a bad job of is explaining how the policy affects them and why it is good for them. And because we've done that, we've allowed the other party, the more conservative, the Republican Party, to encase them in a bubble of information that is not accurate about what our policies are. So I think that if you went there, we've done a horrendous job talking. I don't think we need to go there and be like, hey, I'm sorry. We just need to be there because we actually haven't been there. And we took a lot of things for granted. We expected that these demographics were always going to vote for us, and that people who were in unions or blue collar working class people were going to be on our side in certain states. And in 2016, they weren't. They either didn't turn out to vote or they were swayed by a different economic message. I mean, it was a completely nonsense economic message of platitudes.
I've got to understand. I've tried. I'm like, how the hell is it that like this is maybe just now kind of coming in like into my mind over the past several months. Like I know all this kind of like that, the elites and all that stuff. I'm like, how in the world did they cast us, the Democrats, as the elites, right? I mean, the people that fight for working class, right? We're not the ones that are just constantly doing tax cuts for rich people and trickle down economics and trying to cut social services. How the hell are we the elites?
And then they're standing on.
Hold on. Let me go back to my point. Is because the left has done such a poor job of defining themselves that they've left a vacuum of space for the Republicans to define them for everybody else. And because the left has done that, the right has made the most hyperbolic statements about what our policy is in the most negative context and casts everything as freedom-robbing socialism, and then the Democrats, instead of pushing back and actually communicating their message better, say, oh, well, we can't have them calling us that. We better back away from this policy. We better temper that policy. We better drag it further to the center. And that's been the absolute wrong way to go. Like when I said earlier about I had no doubt that the Democrats were going to manage to fuck up the impeachment process, that's based on the precedent that they fucked up every other process and every other
Exactly.
messaging opportunity throughout the last 3 decades, every single one of them. So if you're not defining yourself, somebody else is going to define who you are for people in the frame of reference and the context that they want. They're going to set the narrative.
That's a perfect point, because even like Hillary Clinton, now hearing like kind of like the interviews of her afterwards, she talks about all the conspiracy theories, and they told themselves, I mean, unfortunately they did not respond to it. Like, these things were so crazy. I mean, like we were thinking to ourselves, who the hell would possibly believe that? And so they left it all alone. And at the end of the day, what they're saying about you, you need to go back at it, even if it's like a little bit nuts. Rick?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I agree with all of this.
Okay, thank you for that insightful commentary.
Well, no. I mean, I'm just saying I don't have anything else to add to this topic. I agree.
I agree that we need to push back, but we also can't let the right set the conversation. Like, just because they make an accusation about something doesn't mean we have to defend ourselves against that accusation. Like we do that. The media allows the Republicans to control the conversation in that way. For some reason, we're talking about open borders and how Democrats want open borders. And there's not any Democrat who wants to just open the borders. But it's a question that's constantly asked and talked about in the media and constantly reiterated by Republicans. And so there's a whole swath of America who thinks that the Democratic policy is for open borders, and it's just nonsense.
Because why? Because they didn't push back. They should have said, "I'm like." No, because they should have drumbeat. We're not for open borders, and they explain why open borders are actually.
They didn't define what they are actually for.
And let me say this is, as the right are framing themselves as the party of the working man, right?
It's laughable.
Right, it's laughable. Then they go on stage and they mock AOC and call her a bartender. And not one person on the left, especially someone running for president, for God's sakes, could even send a tweet, much less stand up and say, why the hell are you mocking someone for doing an honest day's work? Why are you you know what I'm saying? Like, they can't even take it's pitched to them and they can't even swing, much less hit it. They can't even they cannot take advantage of anything because they are tone deaf and they let the right control, because that's what they're the best at. And Trump is the biggest bullshit artist ever. And he is controlling the narrative on being president for the working man, even though he's mocking AOC. He's controlling the narrative on abortion, saying that we are murdering babies after they're born, even though he probably has paid for abortions and he's a porn star fucking 3 times married, what grabber. He's you know what I'm saying? Like, everything that he's controlling.
What is that? What grabber?
Kitty cat grabber.
Oh, kitty.
Yeah, kitty. Everything that he says he is very much not, and yet we cannot control that. We cannot counter that properly. It's
part of the problem is that
maddening.
The part of the problem is that the Republican narrative doesn't require substance. All it requires is repetition. If they just say it over and over and over again, it doesn't matter how factually based it is or how grounded in reality or even how much sense it makes. People believe it. I mean, the ultimate.
But we're helping them. We are not pushing back on it properly. So we're just letting them run with it.
I'm going to disagree with that.
It's true. I mean, at the end of the day,
what do you mean you're going to disagree?
I said I'm not going to disagree.
Oh, you're not. Okay, thank you. I was about to say, who the hell are you?
No. I think it is. It takes like a good political technique, and you need to be a good tactician, because we're talking about trying to communicate a message to masses, and there's a certain stylistic art to it. But I think there's a lot of people that could figure it out. But this for a long time, what the Democratic Party's been just didn't seem like that they really knew like how to push back. But at the end of the day, we cannot let maybe Joe Biden needs to communicate that he didn't. Whatever it's going to be, that he didn't molest children or sleep with farm animals. Who knows what sort of like nutty things they're going to come up with. But there's got to be some counter message when they put stuff out there, like somehow to like point out how absurd it is, because it will get into the zeitgeist.
Well, Joe Biden's too busy out there talking about what a great guy Dick Cheney actually is. So
yeah. By the way, that footage was from 2015, to be fair, but still.
Whatever. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I know, but I agree with you. But yeah, and I'll just say also that we have and I blame the Democrats for this, and I blame us, the American people, all of us. We have normalized Trump's fuckery. Just in the last 48 hours or the last 24 hours, at a rally, he talked about how doctors, licensed doctors, physicians, and mothers of children are murdering babies after they're born, fully functioning human beings. And then joking and mocking, shooting, murdering immigrants trying to cross the border. And no one's even talking about either one today. Nobody.
I know. I think it's the assumption that...
Think about that for a minute.
Who would possibly believe such a thing? Well, the answer is a lot of people, a whole lot of people that catch a wave of that, and they actually do believe it. It doesn't matter how absurd it is.
And I know that you can't chase every dumb fuck thing he says, otherwise you're just going to be chasing your own tail. I get that, but some things can't stand, and anyway, they're controlling a narrative, and we're fucked. I quit. I'm going home. Anyway, I'm kidding.
I don't know. I mean, I do get that feeling that bit. If I was in there, I know exactly how to go back at this stuff, though, but who knows? I'm not a professional politician, although I do play one on TV. So, current dream ticket. What do you think?
Current dream ticket. Jeremy, you take this one first, please.
I don't know if I have a current dream ticket.
You got to pick somebody as it is right now.
As it is right now, I got to pick somebody.
Yes.
Okay. I think that my favorite ticket, if I were going to vote for somebody right now, it would be Warren. And, I love Mayor Pete. If Mayor Pete were the vice president, I'd be happy with that. I like Castro a lot. And...
Dude, I like Castro too, man. I really want him in this game.
Yeah,
he's way off the radar. It sucks.
And I think that the ticket needs to represent something radically different from what it's represented in the past. And I think a Warren Castro ticket is a great way to do that.
Okay, Rick, what is your?
Listen, I've said this on another show. It pains me to say this. I'm very nervous about a woman being on the top of the ticket. And I say that, and I've said this on a previous show, not because I don't think a woman's capable. We should have had multiple women presidents by now. I fought hard for Hillary Clinton, not just in 2016, but Michael, you and I fought like cats and dogs back in 2008 over Obama Clinton. And I worked here, locally here, I'm in Dallas during the primary for her campaign. But what I saw, the results of 2016 after she was the nominee, it scares the hell out of me. And men scare me, and I mean men, period, including ones with D's next to their name, and white women scare me.
At the end of the day, I hear what you're saying. I just think that you are maybe connecting the dots like on the wrong thing. Yes, sexism applied, but Barack Obama was elected, and before Barack Obama, everyone was like, America's not ready to elect a black man with the name Barack Hussein Obama so close after 9/11.
Yeah, but sexism,
nobody cared in the voting booth.
But sexism is different. And
as you are always throwing back in our face, and we throw at people's faces on the page all the time, she got 3 million more votes than the man who was running. And the places where she lost the votes, and the places where people didn't come out to vote for her, they didn't neglect to vote for her because she's a woman. It wasn't that I'm not going to the polls because she's a woman. There were a whole host of other issues that Hillary Clinton had that kept people from wanting to go out and vote for her. Now,
I think sexism is on the top of that list. 52% of white women voted for a kitty cat grabbing, sex craved, 3 times married dirtbag.
But how do you connect that to sexism?
I think white.
Go ahead, Jerry.
I think that the key demographic in what you said about white women is white women. And I think that it can very well be said that maybe some of the issues Hillary Clinton had, she had because she's a woman, and were bigger issues because she's a woman than would have been made issues of than if she were a man. But I think that the bottom line is that Hillary Clinton would have and should have won that race if just a couple of strategic things were different, if she'd run a slightly different campaign, and if that letter that came from Comey just several weeks before the election didn't happen. I think there's a variety of things that didn't have anything to do with her being a woman that really were what ultimately sunk her with a certain segment of voters who didn't go to the polls or ended up voting for somebody else.
And
I don't think it was about her being a woman.
And listen to me.
Hold on. I'd love to say Russian influence too, but at the end of the day, we're going to have Russian influence again, right? I mean, that is 100% going to happen, and nothing is staying in the way. So that has to be baked in as a part of this equation also.
It is. And so to go back to my answer, I like Elizabeth Warren. I'm liking her even more. She's on the cover of Time magazine, this next issue, and I wish I had it in front of me, but it's like, I have an answer for that, or I have a plan for that. That's just the title of the article, the cover page, right. which is great because the woman is policy driven and she does have a freaking answer for virtually everything.
Because she put out the most policy, like she just continues to roll out policy.
But so I like her. I like Kamala Harris as well. I like Julian Castro. I still like Beto. I'm still watching Beto, going, man, this is not exactly where I wanted you to be, bro. We're falling off here a little bit, and he may not be the answer, and he may not be the right person. But I always liked him, and 2 months ago, my dream ticket was Beto and Kamala, Beto Harris. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I believe that Texas is going to be in play in 2020.
I think it is too.
Yeah, absolutely. He came within 200,000 votes. That's crazy with Ted Cruz, and that's a Senate race. There's not nearly as many people that vote in a senatorial race, even though there's a record number of people that did vote in that particular race here in Texas. It's still not the numbers for a presidential race.
Well, Hillary, I don't know that it's still the fact that it still may be bad just because I recognize that it's still more red here than it is blue, but at the end of the day, he was running against Ted Cruz and still lost, and Ted Cruz is arguably more unpopular than Donald Trump.
But you can't. Here's the thing about that though. He did quote unquote lose. There's no doubt about it. But I look at it, all the counties that he flipped here in the Dallas area, dude, Tarrant County. He flipped Tarrant County. That's been a deep red county forever. So with Beto, I look at him as someone that could, all the down ballot people that he won. I think that he would have an opportunity to flip Texas if he was the nominee. So it was Beto Harris. Today, it's not. I don't know who it is today, guys. I don't know.
Well, I was trying to explain to you, me as a progressive, what my issue is. My issue is that I feel that he speaks in prose. He speaks too poetic and too general terms, and I think that the American voter, a lot of people, especially working class people, will smell the bullshit. I believe that he legitimately has ideas and he can be a champion for working class people, but I think that people are so sick. While different, does still the main message to me resonates as that's the kind of the standard level bullshit that we've been hearing for years. I mean, that's just the way that I take it.
Yeah, I watched him here in Texas and saw firsthand him inspiring people all over the state, and I thought, man, if he could take that to the national stage, he's going to be very formidable. And so far, he hasn't done that yet, but it's early. We'll see.
I think Texas Texas can be in play no matter who the candidate is. Certainly, maybe certain candidates give us a better chance of winning Texas than others, but what gets Texas in play is actually going to Texas and talking to Texans and explaining our policy to Texans and getting all of those Democrats who don't go out and vote because Texas is a red state and it doesn't matter if they vote to actually go out and vote. Just needs to be part of the 50-state strategy and get people there, and in Georgia and in Missouri and Indiana. And
I agree. I think Castro would be someone that would be very formidable here as well. I mean, like you said, anybody, to give Bernie credit, he comes here. He was just in Fort Worth recently. So
even to the fact, the regional thing, I'm not saying that it plays, but it's not the biggest thing. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be able to communicate a huge message over the airwaves and get it downstream to resonate with everyone. Can he explain what a stock buyback is, right? And why that's so detrimental to our economy, and not having legislation to protect workers from that. Is that something he could do? Or paint a picture? I think that's the most important thing, besides we may over focus on, hey, he'll bring in this particular state. I don't know. But
so who's your dream ticket, boy?
All we know is this, is that no matter who the candidate is, they need to come to Texas. They need to hit all the states that Trump flipped. They need to hit the Midwest, and they need to talk to everybody and have a powerful message for the entire country, and do not neglect, because yes, Hillary did neglect certain states, and that certainly didn't help. I still stand by the fact that sexism, I think, played a huge hand in that, but we've already been there, so I'm going to peel back that onion.
Neglected those
states. Yeah.
All right, so
absolutely, for sure.
Mine would be as it stands today, and I am factoring in winnability, but if I were going to choose it right now, I think I would choose the Biden Warren ticket. I think that Biden's going to get there. I think that things can change after the first debate, but I think that he's got just so much momentum, and he's got all the charisma. He definitely can connect with working class people, which is what we need in those Midwestern states. And then backing him up, also having a woman on the ticket. He's got Elizabeth Warren there with him, and she is excellent about painting the picture and going to those town halls. And like at the end of the day, also that there's Bernie, who positions himself as the socialist. Elizabeth Warren still declares herself as a capitalist, which I think she is, and I am. I like better capitalism rather than the idea, smarter capitalism rather than socialism. And I think that is really the winning message, and she will be able to definitely shore up anybody who has any concerns about like Biden's, being too much of a corporate Democrat, which I also naturally have too. But I definitely think he's going to be pushed over to the left. So
is his age going to be a problem?
I don't know. I don't want Biden. I don't. For a variety of reasons, and I don't think I need to go into all of them. We've discussed them before. They get discussed ad nauseum on our page and on a variety of pages. But Malloy, you said something about winnability and electability, and I just want to address that whole concept real quick. Like, I don't give a shit about who is presently seen as most electable. I don't care what the pundits say about it because they're totally disconnected from both process and reality. And I don't care what the average Democratic voter says about it because we're so far out, and because what's seen as likability or electability right now is based on nothing more than familiarity. And I also don't give a shit about it because historically the notion of electability is a nonsense myth, and especially for Democrats. In 2016 and 2008, Hillary was seen as the most electable candidate, and that didn't happen either time. Obama certainly wasn't seen as the most electable candidate at this point in the race.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Hillary Clinton had it is nuts, but she was 70% plus when she left the State Department. Like, it seems inconceivable now, but that's a fact.
Right, but in 2008, Obama wasn't seen as the most electable at this point, and he won 2 terms by wide margins. In 2004, Kerry was seen as the most electable, and that didn't work out. Same thing in 2000 for Al Gore. Bill Clinton wasn't seen as the most electable at this point in 92. And again, he won 2 terms by wide margins. What the actual winners for Democrats, Clinton and Obama, what they had that the quote unquote most electable candidates didn't, was that they were the most inspiring candidate. And Democrats believe in policy and they vote for the candidates that inspire them. Like this idea that who's familiar to voters now, or who's most electable, or who pundits say can win, or who's leading in the polls. It's all absolute bullshit. And unless we have a really strong vetting process around policy and ideology through the primary, where everybody goes out and gets an opportunity to vote for the policies and the ideology that they want, we're going to lose.
Agreed. Because I think to back up what you're saying is that who else is unelectable for all intents and purposes? Donald J. Trump. Right. Like, there is nothing electable about him. He is a colossal joke of a human being. Yeah. He's the president of the United States.
Jeb Bush was supposed to be most electable for the Republicans in 2016, and where is he? Has anybody even heard from him? Is he still alive?
Yeah. I don't even know. I was even nervous to him because he speaks Spanish. I was like, that's going to be a downside.
I don't want to talk about quote unquote electability. I think it's bullshit.
Okay. I think you're probably right. So let's move on to the final topic here. Top 5.
Well, look, if you don't mind, just one real quick thing.
No, I do mind. I was ready to move on.
I'm sorry. Give me your number 1 reason why you don't want Biden. I know you don't want to get all into it, but just maybe your number 1.
I think he's the past.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
No. Fair enough. Damn it. Well, can I chime on that? Yeah, he is the past, though, but it's not like the past was all bad. The past just simply wasn't perfect. And the concept of, we also need some seniors. And Biden definitely, because we've been through this, Biden does have bring you that sense of calm and nostalgia for even just the normal days back of Barack Obama and when that was happening. I just think he can have a calming effect and can bring over a lot of people that would be, nervous otherwise. Is he perfect when it comes to policy? No, I've been pissed off at Democrats for years for being too much like corporatists, but I think he can adjust, and I think he can be the leader.
I don't think he can adjust. His ability he's the most slow moving as far as change that I've ever seen. He is not self-aware, and it doesn't matter if he changes. What matters is how he's perceived. And the Democratic Party needs to change, and we can't change if we keep electing the same people that we always elected for the same reasons that we always elected, because we're scared of nominating the people that we really want to be president.
And you know, there's a lot to be said for that, because the Democratic Party really, I didn't realize how fucked up. I say we because Michael and I are in Texas, Jeremy's in California, so you and I have to be registered Democrats if we want to vote in the primary. Jeremy doesn't have to be. But I'm not a Democrat. I'm registered as one so I can vote in the primaries. But I obviously vote for the Democratic nominees because they're a lot less awful than the Republicans, especially the modern-day Republican Party. But what I didn't realize was how fucked up the Democratic Party was and how lost it was after Obama left office.
The Democrats are like a football team playing not to lose. Like, they have the strongest positions on policy. They have the strongest positions in polling. They have the strongest positions on all social issues. And yet they play not to lose. And instead of being aggressive and driving home what we actually believe and what we actually want and the way we think the country should look and the way that policy should look, we play not to lose, and then we end up losing.
That's right. We do not embrace our own policies, which are winning issues, because they believe the conventional wisdom that they see on cable television that everybody's like afraid of it. Oh, bullshit. Get behind what you stand for. Not only is it like, are they great ideas and really resonate with people, but they work. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, it's not just about winning, it's about fixing the country, because we will never be out of this mess. We will do anything for the good old days of Trump if we do not fix the income inequality gap. Like, we have to get on it, and we have to have good policy. So I think it's
the fact that 90% of Americans want gun control reform and we don't have it is the Democratic Party's fault. And the fact that like 80% of Americans think that the way that the Republicans structure their tax policy is wrong, and yet we have that kind of policy, is the Democratic Party's fault. It's because we aren't aggressive in pushing and explaining and making our ideas known and getting them in front of people and making sure that they are passionate about them too.
It comes 100%, Jeremy, it comes full circle back to the fact that we let Republicans, who are great messengers with no message, and we let them do that.
We let them define us and our policy. Yep. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely. Okay, sorry, Michael. Next topic. You wanted to get to. He and I interrupted you.
Well, hell, I guess we're feeding into it. Okay, so top 5. I mean, if you have 5, you can rattle them off. What are your top 5 like policy priorities you think the Democrats should lead with going into the 2020 campaign?
Okay, I want to start. Gun control is number 1. 100%, okay? We're talking about the safety of our kids. It's big. Gun control, climate change, and I will give Beto credit on that. His climate change stuff is actually the best thing he's done since he's been a nominee. Hopefully there's more of that, where that came from.
Even to refine my question more, what's going to get people off the couch that could be otherwise unmotivated to go out to vote?
Well, I think gun control is one for sure. I certainly think healthcare is one, especially considering that we have a Department of Justice that has they don't even want to protect pre-existing conditions right now. They're trying to listen. If this thing, they might succeed in this. They may strip away the Affordable Care Act. And all I can say to that, the only silver lining, if we don't capitalize on that madness, we are absolutely inept and ridiculous and don't even deserve to be in power.
You're referring to the governors of 20-plus conservative states who filed a lawsuit to get rid of the mandate for pre-existing conditions, trying to upend the entire Affordable Care Act.
There's a judge here in Texas, a district judge, that said it's now unconstitutional because the thing that Justice Roberts said made it constitutional was because it was a tax on the what do you call it? You have to get it, otherwise you'll be taxed. What was that called? Yeah, the penalty, but whatever that's called, the mandate, the whatever. Now that's gone, well, it's unconstitutional, and now William Barr.
The last thing that
hold on, let me finish this. But William Barr they're not going to protect this in the courts. So they're saying get rid of all of it. So healthcare is big. Okay.
Right. So keep going through. Right. We got 2 more. We got to get to Germany.
Well, we have to talk about taxation. We have to talk about income inequality. We have to talk about the economy, the way it's set up. It's not set up for the working man. I want them to say, yeah, we're at 3 point whatever the fuck unemployment, assuming it's still that way. But how many of you people out there in Middle America, in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Texas, how many of you are really feeling that? How many people are, that sounds great for stock market jargon and for corporate CEOs and everything, but are you really feeling that and to really drive that message home? Because you know what, the average person that's into tribalism might can tweet and rah all day long about the economy to make Trump look good. But if they really look inward and they look at their bank statements and they look at how much they're working and they look at what they actually have to show as a result of all their efforts, they're not feeling it.
Yeah, the Republicans have sold off the reason for that is because of regulation. I don't even know what that even means or how they connect those dots. It's so maddening.
They have to address that. So those are my main ones right there. That's 4 or 5, and there's one you could probably split up in 2 or 3. But yeah, I think that's
equality. Okay, yeah. Jeremy?
I'd say healthcare. Criminal justice reform, tax reform, election reform, and climate change. And I think the 2 that are most impactful right away are healthcare and tax reform, because those are the ones that people are going to really recognize as impacting their daily lives. And if we can construct the message so that people recognize that our way is better for them and better for their families, then I think that goes a long way to creating political capital that can help us with some of the other things. I think broadly the most important is climate change, and I think it's a keystone policy that that addresses all sorts of things. All kinds of stuff is wrapped up in there. There's jobs in the economy, infrastructure, development of industry, the military, people's health. All of that stuff can be wrapped up into climate change. But we need to change what our messaging is on climate change and how we're addressing those things, and make people understand why those things need to change, so that they recognize how it impacts their lives.
Agreed. And honestly, although neither one of you do too many backflips when it comes to Bernie, but I loved what he had to say. Like, again, not running from it, is that when he was doing the Fox News town hall, and they're like, they're trying to get, like, Bret Baier's trying to get him cornered, saying that, like, are you going to, like, at the end of the day, it's going to, people are going to be paying, like, a lot more money in taxes. And he's like, yes, of course, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But, if you do the math on this, they're not paying premiums. Like, how the Democrats have missed this. Like, there are 2 stacks of money, and it doesn't matter which way that they go. One is higher than the other out of your pocket. Why are you choosing the one? Why do you care if, as long as it's more money in your pocket? And by the way, it would make the economy way better in itself too.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me ask you guys this, because Jeremy, you talked about criminal justice reform. Should we be running on legalizing pot like everybody? Is that a winning issue? Because I think it is, and
absolutely.
I think it can tie into to criminal justice reform as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should. We've criminalized it to an extent that's been used sort of as a cudgel against poor and minority communities, and that's a big deal. And I mean, it's something that doesn't need to be criminalized. Now, it needs to be regulated, just like cigarettes or alcohol. And to be fair, I think that marijuana should be as legal as cigarettes, but I don't think cigarettes should be as legal as they are, right? There needs to be some change in regulation on both sides. But I definitely, like, if somebody asks any candidate if marijuana should be legalized and it should be taken off the federal Schedule 1 narcotics list, the answer is absolutely yes, 100%.
Yeah, the American public's behind it. Like, I think I think that reefer madness and all that, I think we finally have moved past it. Hell, I mean, Colorado just took a huge legislative step forward yesterday, I think maybe just read it yesterday, earlier in the week, to legalize psychedelic mushrooms. Like, America is changing on the drug debate and throwing marijuana, like wasting all these time and resources, putting people in jail for marijuana. Nobody gives a shit anymore, except for, like, people maybe over 90.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, it's a valid point. I think there's a lot of good things that could be like little wedge issues. I love that idea too, though. But I'm on the same page with you all. I'm income inequality is my number one. Medicare for all. Overhaul campaign finance laws. I'm so sick of the corruption, and it's because it's structurally allowed to happen. It can be defeated. Obviously climate change, and actually gun control was my number 5, so we're all on the same page.
Gun control would be pretty far down the list for me, to be honest with you, but
yeah, well, I mean, as an issue to lead with, true. So okay, all right, anything else before we wrap it up here?
No, I think that, look, I'll say this one more time, as I say this on our page on Twitter. The single most important thing we need to do next year is to remove this man. Just think about the ramifications of another 4 years of Trump. Imagine him molding the Supreme Court, very literally this time, because he'll get two more justices. Yeah. Okay, it's going to be a Donald Trump Supreme Court. So for the people that are, fanatical about Bernie or whoever it is and saying no blue will do or whatever, I beg you to check yourself on that.
Will do. Yeah.
Not just I beg you to check yourself on that. We can sort out our differences with the candidate we don't necessarily like after this man is gone. He's destroying our institutions. He's destroying our relationships with our closest allies.
He's destroying the relationships between us and our family members and friends. Frankly,
he's a
cancer.
He's a cult leader, and he cannot be rewarded by his behavior for another 4 years. And I don't know what America looks like post-Trump, even after one term, much less two.
Right.
We cannot let this man win. I don't like Bernie Sanders. I'll just say it. I don't like him. Okay? Don't care for him.
I like Bernie Sanders. I'd much rather have him than Biden.
Hold on. But it's my point is a larger point here. If he's the nominee, I will support him 100% enthusiastically, and I will support him as a sitting president and sort out my differences with him later. I'm asking people that are for Bernie or whoever it may be, that it has to be their candidate. Fight for that candidate in the primary, absolutely, 100%. You have every right to do that. I'm just begging everyone that whoever we end up nominating, okay, let's vote. Even if it's not for that person, it's against Trump. For any reason, I can give a million reasons, but do not let this man mold the Supreme Court. That is generations of affecting lives. Very literally decades.
Agreed. And we're going to be able to repeat that over and over again. And I look forward to having a little bit more time next time around, though, because I don't want Bernie to be the candidate, but I also do not dislike him. I like him a lot more. But unfortunately, we're out of time, and so you can't respond to that. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. This was the Left Shew Politics Podcast, episode number 26. You probably found us on Facebook. Thank you. If you haven't, please like us on there. We're also on Twitter. It's at Left Shew Politic. That's LEFTSHEW Politic without an S, because Rick kind of screwed that up and we didn't have enough characters.
I didn't screw it up. There just wasn't enough characters.
I know. You could have switched it to something else. All right. I'm in my closing statements here, so get out. Anyway, so thanks again for joining us. Find us on iTunes, and please share us all over the internet, and we will talk to you all soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of our Left Shew Politics Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Left Shew Politics. Follow the Facebook page at facebook.com/Left Shew Politics and the LSP website, leftshewpolitics.com. Search for our channel on YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play.